A step-by-step guide pricing your gardening work. Today's video is about the process of how I work out a quote, how I work out the final price. G'day viewers, Jeff from McPhee's Gardening, Melbourne, Australia. I've had a few requests about how do I quote. I provided some advice to fellow contractors about how I go about quoting. Because when you first start out in business, it's so difficult to work out how long it's going to take you to do the job and what's involved. I think the secret is, and I'll explain in my video today, is that you need a process to work out the quote. So easy to go in there and say, oh, it'll take me this long, and oh yeah, and I'll just guess and jot a few figures down and you tell the client the number. To come back and do the job and you find you've underquoted yourself because you haven't prepared yourself. When you do a quote, preparation is so important. You prepare yourself to do the work, you prepare yourself in business, but to prepare yourself to how you quote, it's critical. So when you're starting out, it's so easy to get sucked in to underestimate. And even along the journey, quoting is just, it is tough, and it just requires that thought process. And I treat a quote just as importantly as I treat as doing a good job. Because if you don't get it right at the start, you're going to end up with tears. You know, how often have we, and look, I'll be honest with you, after nearly 4 decades, there's been the odd occasion over the last few years where I've underquoted. I've gone in there blasé and just gone, oh yeah, it'll be such and such. Gone to do the job and it's taken me twice as long, and I've been kicking myself for the rest of the day and the week. It really grates me. So you never get it 100% right all the time. But today I want to show you a process that I think that if you follow, you'll get probably 80-90% of it right. There's several steps in the process. The first one is probably one of the most important ones, is the communication with your client. So today's example, we're going to remove a hedge and we're going to replace it with a different type of hedge. So questions when we're talking to the customer will be as follows. We're going to remove the hedge and take everything off site. Now, what sort of hedge do you want? The client in this particular case wants ficus. So the first thing you've got to identify is, do they want a small hedge to start off with? In other words, a 12-inch high plant, or do they want a 8-10 foot advanced plant? Which ones do they want to go ahead with? Because there's a big difference in price from $150 for a large one to $30 for a smaller one. In this particular case, we're going to quote 10 plants because we've explained to the client we're going to have spacings of 600 mil apart so that we get a nice knitted hedge eventually. You need to ask these questions with the client, because when you finish the job, they've got to turn around and go, yes, that's exactly what I asked for. How many times you've done a job and they've gone, oh, I thought the plants might have been bigger, because you failed to communicate to the customer on how big the plant was going to be from the start. Another thing is to ask the client, we're going to mulch it when we finish. So do you want the mulch just in that particular area, or do you want the whole garden mulched? And if that's the case, do we need to clean out the garden as well? So the client needs to advise you if he just wants mulching for that particular area, and that's what we'll use in this example, or do you want the whole garden? But you must explain, you must get that agreement between the two of you of what exactly needs to be done. What I suggest at the end, when we work out our final price, is when we give our client the quote, everything will be itemised, and that's exactly what will happen. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of actual quoting, actually how we're going to do the process. The thing is organisation. Now, before we even start the job, we've got a lot of things we've got to do. We've got to source the plants. We've got to get the material for the compost mix. We've got to get the mulch. We've got to get where all that's going to be. Now, that's going to take time. So in our quote, we're going to draw up 2 columns. One is how long it's going to take us and what costs are involved. So let's go through the time taken. Okay, sourcing of the material is so underestimated. I've seen so many contractors out there, they'll go and do a quote, but they fail to take their time of sourcing the material. Now, in this particular case, we're getting 10 ficus. They are large. They are probably too big to transport. So we've got to organise transport, delivery from the nursery to the site. That's going to involve ringing up, organising it in advance, having that done. The other thing you want organised is your compost mix and your mulch that you'll put on your trailer, your ute, your van, go to the site. Because when you get there, time is important. You don't want to be going to the tip, coming back, going out and sourcing the material and coming back. Organisation at the start will reduce the amount of time involved. So in this particular case, my theory will be we'll remove the existing hedge, we'll then place that in a tarp. Our ute has already got our mulch and our compost mixed, our plants have been delivered, and away we go. So let's work out times. Sourcing material could take up, in this particular case, it took me an hour and a half of my time. The time I got the mulch, the time I travelled and got the compost mix, and also organised the ficus, the actual the plants. Now that was easy because I could do that over the phone, and I've got a good relationship with the nursery. That was delivered, that's done easily. But had I have actually gone and got the plants, probably would have been another hour, because loading it, you know, sorting through the plants that I want takes a long time. So you need to put down that time it takes you to source the material to do the job. This particular case, I'm allocating an hour. The second part, I've got to remove these shrubs. I've got to remove the stumps. Now, when I first quoted the job, I looked at it and I thought, it's sandy loam, it's digging. I'm going to dig holes twice as big as the pot. I'm going to add compost mix in it, and that'll be quite straightforward. I've looked around to see if there's any large trees nearby, because the root system can penetrate the area that you want to work in. All these you need to take a shovel along when you do the quote and just dig around just to make sure you're not going to strike rock or extra roots from other trees, etc. Some plants' root systems are really deep and they might take time. This particular case, they were quite easy to remove. But you might need to get in a stump grubber. You might need to get into some to hire that. These are things you need to consider. This particular case, it was quite easy. We can do that within an hour, to remove the existing hedge, to dig the holes, to add in a compost mixed, work that through the soil. The next hour will be taken up by planting out the plants, taking them out of the pots, putting them in buckets of sea soil, which is a seaweed mixture. It helps the transfer of a plant from the pot to the ground. It invigorates the root system. Very important. It's called sea soil. Just a bucket of water, a few capfuls in, let it soak each plant, then plant it out. Once that's planted in, it's all it's all watered in well and compacted, and then we then apply the mulch to that particular area only. There's another hour. So we're looking at 3.5 hours total by the sourcing time, or 3 hours I think, by the sourcing, the removal of the existing material, and the planting out. Now, we haven't thought about the tip fee yet, that we'll get to that. So on our column of labour, we've allocated 3 hours. Now we're going to look at the costs. The ficus, they were from a wholesale nursery, but I'm going to charge the client the retail price. So we put that down. The mulch and the compost mix, again, I'll get that cheaper at the yard, because I deal them quite often. I will add on the retail price. I'll also add on a handling fee, which will be my handling and working out and paying and putting it on the ute, etc. Then all that's added up to the total cost. There's one other major cost involved, of course, as we know. You're probably saying, what about the tip fee, Jeff? Yes, the tip fee. All the material at the end of the job, it's got to be taken to the tip, so you've got to pay the tip fee, but the time that it takes you to go to the tip, unload, that could be at certain times. You're going to need to work that component out as well. We've worked out that how long it's going to take us, and we've worked out all the costs involved. We put it together, we come up with a total price. Now, it doesn't stop there. The total price must include a profit. Once I've added all those costs in, I'll add on a 30% profit margin. That 30% profit margin is so important to our business. It's the futures of our business. It's our slow times. It pays for future capital purchases. It's money in the bank. You've already worked that 3 hours or whatever. That's your wage. You pay for your materials. Now, I'm not adding a GST, a goods and services tax, in that, because you've already put that in your cost of materials. That's already been included. GST in Australia, VAT tax in other parts, whatever you do overseas in the UK or whatever, but that tax is already cleared. So you can't add another tax on top of the tax for your customers. You've got to be fair. You've got to do a fair price. So once I've added that up, added my 30%. Now, you might want to use a less, or you want to use more, but 30%'s really worked well for me over my long career. So I use that to, make it more than just a job, more than just an hourly rate. So when I present the quote to the client, it's going to be a detailed, step by step. I'm going to show you here. Now have a look at this. This is my invoice, or not invoice, this is my quote that I've sent the client. I've itemised, removing the hedge and, taking it to the tip, supply and, mixed compost mix, supply and plant the plants out, supply and lay the mulch step by step, water it all in, clean up, make it tidy. The area of mulching is only the area where the plants have been. So it's been detailed exactly. And at the bottom, we'll have a final figure. I don't itemise the amount because I don't want to give the client the ability to say, oh, can you cut this out, or a final figure, and that's my figure. One valuable tip I'll give you: don't pine or headache over the amount that you've quoted. Don't say, oh, maybe I should drop a little bit, maybe I should charge more. If you use a process, you've worked out the price, and that's the price you present the client. Because I'll tell you a secret, well, it's not a secret, the client will decide whether you get the job or not. Not you by reducing it or increasing it. The client, it's his decision. You presented it to the client, here is my figure. So all you need to do is wait back for them to get back to you. Now, what I do suggest, and a lot of clients will get back to us pretty straight away, but some might take a bit of time. Maybe they're getting other quotes. If they do get other quotes, if they haven't got back to you, ring them up after a week saying, oh, look, how did you go with the quote? And they might say, oh, look, we've got someone else a bit cheaper. That's fantastic, not a problem. Now, listen, if you get into trouble, if it doesn't work out too well, I'm here to help out. So leave on good terms. Tell the customer, bid them good luck. And, sometimes I've had it, the cheap guy, we all knows what happens to the cheap guy. It's not a good job, and then you've got to go in and fix it up. So it's always nice to say to the client, look, thank you so much for the opportunity of quoting. Yes, look, it's up to you to get someone, that I was a bit too dear. That's fine. But I'm here to help if you need further information or if you want help at a later date. And they'll thank you for that. And they'll have you in the back of the mind going, gee, he was a nice guy. Rather than say, oh, stuff you, if you think I'm too bloody dear, well, bugger it, No, just offer your services for the future. Trust me, it really works well. All right, that's a thing that just got to remember. Process of quoting, look at the steps, communicate with the customer well, and follow up. Viewers, look, thanks for your time. Please subscribe if you're new to the channel, share and likes, and love to hear your comments on how you guys do it. That's the way I do it. It's worked pretty well over the years. Thanks again. See you in the next video, guys and girls. Bye.